said something and wanted the words right back as soon as they came out of your mouth? Or have you ever been nodding and going along with the conversation even though you totally disagreed? Have you ever shuddered at the thought of talking to someone, either because of how they were going to show up or because of how you were going to show up? Well, that might signal to you that you need some more work on your communication style. So what I want to do today is educate you about the 3 most common styles of communication, and then also give you some insight about why you might want to choose one version of communication over another. And because communication is so important, right? We are FaceTiming, we're on Zoom calls, we are doing all sorts of messaging now, even by text message. And so the way that you communicate will affect your relationships, it affects your career outcomes, and most of all, I bet you haven't even considered how it affects your own self-esteem. So come with me for this quick conversation, and we're going to talk about communication. Listen, there are 3 types of communication styles that are predominant, and those are assertive, aggressive, and passive. I'm going to give you an animal to think about for each one so that maybe it'll stay top of mind. Ready? Let's start off with this side of the pendulum, on the passive side. When I think about passive, I think of a turtle. A turtle is frequently in its shell. It's alone, might be considered lonely, right? It needs a lot of support. Think about a turtle that kind of gets turned over and it needs help to get back on the other side to keep going, right? And when we think about turtles, we don't think about communication much at all. But that's really how a passive communicator might show up in the world. They just go along to get along, don't really stand out in the crowd. And if that's the case, sometimes that can negatively affect your own self-esteem. Well, Liz, how would that affect my self-esteem? Here's how. You might not have the confidence because you don't communicate your boundaries, because you are scared and afraid of conflict, because you don't speak your truth when it needs to be shown, right? If that's happening, then you might be affecting your own self-confidence in a negative way. Here's what it sounds like when people are passive. They may say something like, oh yeah, we can go wherever you want to go to eat, knowing full well they don't want to go wherever this other person wants to go. They may say something like, yes, absolutely, I can take on another project today, no problem. I don't mind staying until 10:30, when they know they really need to be out of the office by 5. They may also say something like, I don't know, whatever you guys want to do, no problem. I really don't care at all, when they really do care. If you find yourself being in one of those scenarios and sounding like that, you might be a passive communicator. Let's go to the other side now, right? On this side, we have from passive to aggressive. Think lion. That's the animal I want you to think about, a lion. So when I think lion, I think aggressive, I think harsh. Now here's the thing, it could be in the word choice, it could be in the tone of voice, it could be in the body language, right? Here's what it might sound like if a person is an aggressive communicator. They might say something like, well, it's obvious to me, I don't know why it's not obvious to you. They might also say something like, have that on my desk by the end of the day or else. They might also say something like, well, only an idiot would think that. Are you an idiot? If you find yourself being the person who is saying things like that, you're probably an aggressive communicator. And that is going to affect your self-esteem and your relationships also. And here's how. If you are an aggressive communicator, people don't want to talk to you. They don't want the relationship with you. And if they do have a relationship with you, then they're worried about you guys staying in a relationship and how they're going to feel long term by being in a relationship with you. And when I say relationship, it could be personal or professional. Here's the other thing. Sometimes people that are aggressive communicators, they're the ones that I kind of opened up with when I said you say something but you want it right back. Aggressive communicators many times want to do something different. They just don't know how. And so they've hurt and damaged some of their relationships, and some relationships have even ended because of how they've handled communication. So that's a tough one for them too. All right. If you're that aggressive communicator, let's talk about and pay attention and listen to this next part about being an assertive communicator. Assertive is right in the middle of passive and aggressive, because I don't want you swinging from one end to the other. Let's look for the middle. So here's assertive. When you think of assertive, the animal I want you to think about is a wise old owl. Ready? A wise old owl is a great communicator. Here's how they may sound. I think that'd be a great place for us to go for dinner. I want to get to bed early tonight because I have a big day tomorrow. I feel misunderstood when you say this to me. It's important to me that our relationship stay intact, and I would like for us to speak to each other this way. That is assertive communication. It is clear, it is concise, and it is not misconstrued, right? So it's not leaving out any words in there. It's just very intentional. It's very intentional. Here's what you might think too. When I think about an assertive communicator, they have great boundaries, right? It sounds something like, no, that won't work for me this time. Oh, I'd love to work on that project for you, but I won't be able to start it today. I can't start it in the morning. Okay, so that person has self-confidence. That person can have their self-esteem stay intact, and that person probably has better relationships because why? They're not being taken advantage of, their boundaries are not being all walked over, and they are not being belittled or expecting to be demeaned. Okay, so when you're thinking about communication, there are 3 dominant styles, and those are passive, one end of the pendulum, aggressive, the other end of the pendulum, and assertive, which are in the middle. Now, here's one thing I want to caution you on. Here's a cautionary tale. Many times people will try to go from one extreme right to the other. If they find themselves in this aggressive conversation, they start to try to behave in a passive way. That won't work because they're not communicating at all. If they found themselves passively communicating, they try to go to the aggressive side, which is like, I've been putting up with this so long, I ain't gonna put up with it no more. That won't work either. I want you to look for the wise owl. I think, I want, I feel, it is important to me. When you do that, you'll be able to communicate assertively. Listen, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. I hope you found yourself in our conversation where you know where you are right now and then also where you might want to go. If you'd like to deepen your insight into this conversation, head on over to our website. The description is below and you can find a quiz there about identifying your communication style. Listen, I'll be back next week to have another conversation with you about all things mental health and all things how you can improve your life and enjoy your life every single day. I love you. Bye.